And then really excited for this call today, have Chuck Grimmett joining us. Chuck is definitely like a multi-hyphenate. He is a technical account engineer at Automatic. Automatic, for everyone who isn't familiar, is the parent company of WordPress, WordPress.com, Tumblr, and I think probably a couple other things at this point. And Chuck leads a team there on special projects. And Chuck also has big time connections in the past to Praxis. And so has been a great friend, supporter, and builder of lots of the stuff that you're still engaging with Praxis stuff. So Chuck, thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. And so kind of first thing, always like to kick it off this way, but could you give us kind of that 30,000 foot high level overview of your career journey up to now?
Sure. So, okay. Let me give a little perspective. I am 33 now. So I graduated college, 11 years ago. So I've been in the job market roughly 11 years. I started out, I left college a little early and started out working at a think tank. Some of you might know it, the Foundation for Economic Education. Worked there for a little while doing technology and some stuff like that. And then after about a year and a half, I moved to a tech company, and we were more or less an agency. Sometimes we were doing new builds. Sometimes we were going in and taking the 1970 style CRMs and converting them to new versions of Microsoft CRM. And that I started building out like a WordPress division there. And after a couple of years, my friend Isaac Morehouse contacted me, and we started talking about doing some side work for Praxis. Actually, let me roll back just a little bit. The way that I got the job at the agency was that we hired the agency when I was working at the think tank, and over some conversations at dinner, working on projects together, I had a couple ideas I was pitching to the owner of the agency. And he was like, you know what, why don't you do some freelance work for me? And we'll see how we work together. So I think for about a year, I did work both at fee, and then I would log out in the evenings. I would then more or less nights and weekends freelance work for this agency, and that led to eventually full-time job there. Fast forward a little bit, I did some work for Praxis, actually, talking with Isaac Morehouse. I built out the original version of the portal that you all use, I think over about a month, 1 year. And then a couple months later, Isaac pitched me on coming forward with the team full time. So I was at Praxis, and then eventually moved on to the other company that Isaac moved on to, Crash, for a couple of years. I was on the founding team there, and left in 2020. I think this is a big demarcation in my mind, because I quit my job at Crash like 3 days before the lockdown started in the US. And then I hadn't started my new job yet, and I was really worried that maybe the company would freeze all hiring. And so I was in limbo for a couple of days and kind of freaking out, but it ended up working out well. So I work at Automatic, and as Ryan said, we're the makers of WordPress.com and Tumblr, Day One, a bunch of apps. WooCommerce, the open source e-commerce platform built on top of WordPress. And I lead a team of engineers. And what we do is we build out new, pretty high profile WordPress sites, or get called in to fix broken ones and speed them up, make them better, etc. So there's probably sites that you visit on a weekly basis that my team builds and maintains. It's a pretty cool job. I love it. I've been in the WordPress community for, I think I built my first WordPress site in 2008. And I'm very big into blogging. Kind of one of the reasons why I'm interested in WordPress, as it being a blogging engine, and very into blogging, sharing my work out loud. That's what kind of brought me into the job that I'm in now.
Awesome.
I think in the various roles that I've had, they've always had a strain of technology and some like engineering development, but also done some sales roles, done some marketing roles as well. So operations. So I feel like covered most of the bases. I haven't done regular design. There is an element of design and the engineering that we do on a regular basis.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to follow up on that before we start diving into AI stuff was, what does kind of like day-to-day look like in your role in terms of like how much you're actually programming? What are like the core things?
Sure. So since I'm a team lead, I spend about half of my time doing like team lead sort of stuff. So I have to balance quite a bit of new work coming in, you know, assigning it, one-on-ones with the people on my team every other week, coordinating with other teams around the company on priority, working on projects in general. And then I would say maybe about a third of my time programming, and then a decent amount of work on actual issues or new builds, analyzing what needs to be done, or the kind of architecture, I think is a good way to put it. Figuring out what needs to be built, kind of setting a path going forward, working with the people to get that in place. It's somewhat different than project management in that once I kind of put all the pieces in place, I'm not really managing the day-to-day aspects of the projects, but kind of like get it all, architect it, get it all set up, and then pass it along.
Awesome. All right. So I think you tell me if we want to go a different direction to start with, but
Sure.
I'm thinking kind of for everyone here, I am guessing basically everyone's familiar with lots of different things that are happening in AI. Of course, ChatGPT is like the big thing everybody's talking about. Everyone's seen like AI avatars going around. But for you, Chuck, what would you say kind of like, in terms of that like landscape of things, like the important things that are happening right now with AI that make it something that people should be aware of?
One cool thing about that is that it changes almost every week. Like it feels like it's been years since ChatGPT kind of really went mainstream. I bet you back in like November, December, but you know, it's only been a couple months now, and things have changed so much since the first day of logging in there, trying it out. I think the way that I like to think about what's going on in AI now is not necessarily what each of the individual tools is doing, but like what it's allowing us to do. And that, like harking back to like I like to take a lot of things back to economics, like economics, mathematics is my background. I see AI as lowering the opportunity cost of many things. And first and foremost, trying out new ideas. So get a new idea. You want to kind of kick the tires. AI makes it very fast and easy to just try out something, take it decently far, and then decide whether or not it's worth investing in anymore, right? And also lowers the opportunity cost of learning new things. Like you want something to quickly help you set up a path for learning something new, or take something that you don't know and explain it to you in words that you understand now. Thinking about like, okay, what would we do maybe 15 years ago? You might need to go to a library, pick out a bunch of books, read a bunch of indices, figure out, you know, exactly what you're trying to learn here, maybe pull out some encyclopedias. Fast forward to maybe 5-10 years ago, it's a lot easier to use Wikipedia for that stuff. But what if you don't even need to read the full Wikipedia articles anymore? Just summarize lots of things to sort of get your basic bearings. I find AI is really great for that. And when it comes to trying out new ideas, of course, I do a decent amount of programming, but it doesn't necessarily need to be programming. I find it helpful to like scaffold out, what does a new project look like for me? Sometimes that's code. Sometimes that's I have something in Excel or Google Sheets. I need to transform it to this. I need to analyze it in this way. And then I need the outputs to look like this. All right. What does each step of that process look like? Instead of like trying to figure it out all on my own, which I probably can, but it might take me an hour or two. Probably can figure it out in maybe 20 minutes with some new AI tools. And that's really speeding up like regular workflows. And I don't think that that necessarily means that I just shove more into my day, but it gives me time to really focus on the things that matter and getting some of the not fun stuff, I would say, out of the way. I think that's the way that I'm thinking about AI right now. And a couple of ways that I thought that maybe our conversation could go, instead of me just jabbering at you, is that an hour ago, I went through the modules in the Praxis portal. We're going to refresh my mind on what's there. That everyone needs to go through the same roughly 3 modules, and then you separate out into those 4 different rules when it comes to placement. Roughly 4 rules. I know there's a couple more as well, but I came up with some ideas on how to use various AI tools in each of the main monthly modules, and then also once you're in one of those roles, like say in a sales role or in a marketing role, what are some ways that you can use AI tools there to just make yourself more efficient, like get more done, be quicker. I know that when you're early in your career, sometimes you're just grinding, trying to figure things out. But showing that you are speedy, like you're really on it, can make a big difference. And like if it's between you and a couple other people with moving forward to your next role, being the one with the fast turnaround can really make a difference there, right? So how can you use these AI tools to go that route? So I thought we could maybe have a discussion about that. So the first monthly module, foundations. Anyone have some ideas on various? Oh, well, also first, are you all kind of familiar with the rough landscape of AI tools? Does anyone want to give a 30-second overview of like what different kinds of tools are out there? And I'm not going to call on people. If someone just wants to unmute themselves and talk, feel free. I'm going to drink some tea out of my Praxis mug.
I know there are like art AI tools that people use to come up with like logos, I think.
Right.
I know like
Yeah.
ChatGPT, they write like essays and what is it? Copywriting, I think.
There's Connor, I think you're muted there.
Just fooling around with ChatGPT, it does so much more than just copywriting and building essays if you know how to use it. There's definitely a learning curve to it, but just from my experience with it, it's kind of phenomenal. And there's a lot in the future to be excited about if you're interested in AI.
I would agree with that. The rough categories that I think about AI tools in are tools that you can sort of ask questions to, which I would count ChatGPT and things like Poe, Bard, Claude. Those are all kind of chatbots, right? So chatbots, you can ask questions and you get textual results back. There are image and video creation AI tools, so they could sort of create visuals for you. And then there's analysis sort of tools. So when you think about using Google Sheets and you select a row or a column of data, there's a little bar that comes out now that gives you ideas of different formulas that you can use with those tools, right? And do different things with it. And it makes doing things like making pivot tables a heck of a lot faster than it used to be. You have to manually write the formulas for pivot tables just to snap with some of the AI tools coming out there. So I would say textual, image / like visual field-based, and then sort of analysis tools are roughly the big three categories I can think of. Of course, they all kind of talk to each other. You can do automatic transcriptions of various things, get textual input back, take that text input, do analysis on it, or take that text input, make visuals out of it. You can summarize images with text, then make a video out of it, like, kind of goes in all 3 or 4 directions. So when it comes to what you're doing in the foundations month module, the first month you're in Praxis, what are some ways that you think you might be able to use AI tools in there? And what would the goal of using AI tools in there be?
You can definitely use it in customer success, like make it proper. I know in module 1 we made a rudimentary chatbots. You can use AI to make like a proper chatbot. I know there's some, I think it might be ChatGPT. I might be wrong about that. That can actually intelligently answer questions that you pose to it. So in theory, you could use the new AI technology or that technology to create something similar for Q&A sections for a company website.
Right. Some ways that we're doing that at Automatic right now, that we have hundreds of thousands of chat logs, right? So like all of our customer service reps mostly do actual live customer service chat, some via email, but we also have an insane amount of documentation. So we're trying to train a large language model on just our documentation, which actually it sounds like that takes a ton. It doesn't take as much effort as it seems. It's mostly about getting the inputs and outputs in the right formats, which takes some trickery. But once you get there, it's actually pretty cool at how quickly you can get a chatbot to give answers that look like something that a customer service rep might use. I was thinking, like, one of the main goals of module 1 is you're just trying to learn the landscape of what are the different roles and how, like, you're looking forward a couple months. What might I be interested in? I think the content in the Praxis module is pretty good at giving you an overview. I think some of it's even still stuff that I wrote a couple years ago in there. I'm edited quite a bit now, but there's still a kernel of what I created. But I think if I were going through Praxis now, I'd probably use something like ChatGPT to help me learn those roles faster. So instead of just taking the time and reading there, you know how you can get on a call with kind of anyone at Praxis and ask them tons of questions about what's it like in XYZ role? What do you do? What happens at this company? You don't even have to wait to get on a call with Ryan or someone now. Spend an hour asking questions to ChatGPT about that. I think you'll be amazed at what sort of results come back and like how you can sort of customize your learning process to what you specifically interested in, and just dive deep where you want to, and then summarize and get a quick overview of where you don't. You all read the book, what was it called? Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. It's a really good sci-fi book. I think one of the main plot points in the book is that there's this book that a young girl named Nell comes across. Her brother steals it from someone, and she comes across it. The book is kind of adapts to her learning style. She asks questions to the book. It adapts the storyline. It starts with a really basic, like, princessy storyline. She's like a 4 or 5-year-old, and then it sort of, as she asks questions, it adapts the story over and over and over, dives deep, and then it comes back up. Right? It's I think we're starting to get to the point where we might see something actually like this. It might not be the same physical object. The whole book is kind of like about nanoparticle nanostructures, but I saw something very recently that looks a heck of a lot like the book in Diamond Age called Trellis. Let me find the link here. I'll throw it in chat. And I'm still waiting on getting access. So if someone already has access to it and can invite me, I would be your friend for a long time. I'll find there's a million companies called Trellis apparently, but there's this AI read Trellis, I think. Here we go. And it's pretty amazing. Like you can use it as your own custom tutor for learning. Okay, so by the way, I'm not reading much in the chat here. I know there's some chat there. So if there's anything that someone wants to talk about, someone shout it out for me.
Curious if you, for like that example of like, hey, I want to dive into like, marketing role or sales role.
Sure.
What would be a good example of like, if you were like, okay, use ChatGPT, what is like a good prompt? How would you kind of like go about finding that and making sure like you're getting good info?
Okay, so you always have to start sort of broad and then narrow it down. It's hard to say. They update ChatGPT on a regular basis, so what works really well today might be somewhat different tomorrow. But let's say ask for 5 different marketers and then ask about each of their marketing styles and how they compare and contrast, sort of get some of your results there. If one piques your interest, ask more specific questions about that one sort of marketer, or there's probably enough out there about, say, like how marketing works at certain big company you might be interested in. Ask what ChatGPT knows about that. And when I say knows, keep in mind I'm using that colloquially. I don't think it actually knows. I don't think it's conscious, but what it can respond to you about some of these various roles. I would say think of it as like an interlocutor, right? You ask it questions, ask it to summarize things for you, and then also test your own understanding. Say, here is my understanding of XYZ. Is this accurate? Is it accurate? Are there certain things that I don't understand? Like, what are my gaps in my understanding based on what I've written here? Have it ask you questions back. Say, ask me 3 questions about XYZ. Respond, see if you're correct, right? You can sort of make it quiz you in real time. There's kind of no end to what sort of questions you can ask there, especially if you just keep an open mind, like keep curious about it and realize that sometimes it might not hit the true mark. Like, one thing that a lot of people do is they'll write a question like, hey, who is my name? Unless you have a very, very big web presence, it probably doesn't really know who you are. It's going to get it wrong. And then you're going to be like, oh, this isn't right. I don't trust it. It's only kind of as good as its inputs. And so it's done a pretty good job at like cataloging most textual, like most things on the internet, a decent amount of books and things as well. So it's getting pretty good, but I mean, it's not omniscient, right? It doesn't know who you are. It might, in fact, I asked it about myself. I have a pretty decent web presence. It's still got some things wrong. It thinks that I work at Stack Overflow, which is not true. I don't even think I have a Stack Overflow profile. It hit some things right. Like it talks about what I blog about on a regular basis. So it's clearly cataloged my blog, but things that you can find the answers for in books and videos, pretty good on. I've been surprised at kind of how quickly it summarizes things.
I actually wanted to mention that I used it to create ads so I'm in the hair industry, and I tried to use it to see if I could create a Facebook ad with it, and it actually did pretty well, but I think the issue I came across is that it was too generalized to present like I think like salons have their own brands, so I think it's a good way to like go off of and summarize and kind of make your own thing out of it, but it did a pretty decent job of doing that.
And that brings up a good point of something I wanted to mention, which is that I don't think the right way to use AI tools is to ask it for the finished product. I think using it to coach you to get to the finished product is probably going to lead to better results. So, for example, instead of saying, spit me out an essay about XYZ, first, maybe have it help you with an outline. Then you take a pass at the first draft. You write the first draft, then ask it to take a look at your first draft, point out 3 places where your arguments are weak and need more substantiation, ask it to help you come up with that substantiation, then ask it to play devil's advocate for you. Say, where are my arguments weak here, and what are the counter arguments against what I'm saying? Then you can take the counter arguments in there. You can craft your essay around addressing these counter arguments. Then you can ask it to it's probably the world's best thesaurus. I thought that I had the world's best thesaurus, which is on one of my shelves here. Here we go. The synonym finder. This has more synonyms than any thesaurus that's on the internet. It's pretty crazy. It's never been digitized, but honestly, ChatGPT is probably better than this Rodale book that I have here. And so in areas where you're using, $300 words and you need a $1 word, ChatGPT is really good at trying to swap out some of those words for you. You don't necessarily want your writing to sound like an academic paper. Will turn people off. You want it very nice and approachable. You can have it help you with your voice on the paper. Then it's really like you plus a tutor at that point, and no one would ever object for using a tutor to help you write. Same with ChatGPT. But if you asked your tutor, you just took your tutor's writing and passed it off as your own, that's where issues sort of come up. Not only like ethical issues, but also just like, what's the point of you trying to learn this stuff if you're not doing it, I think. All right, well, let's move on to, I think we talked about and one other point, which is that if you do ask it to write you a paragraph about something, I almost see that like going to a book and seeing a paragraph about the topic and using that as your research. Then, and one thing I do at work quite a bit, we have to write emails to, we call them partners rather than customers because of the line of work I'm in. We're kind of a concierge style team. So we view people as our partners rather than our customers. So we do a lot of writing, and one thing that we tell each other quite a bit is that it's easier to edit than it is to create something from scratch. And so if you're kind of under the gun and you need something and you're feeling like, oh man, I don't even know what to write, ask ChatGPT to write you 5 different, like not 5-paragraph essay, but 5 different paragraphs in different writing styles about what you're trying to do, and then take those and sort of use them as inspiration, edit them down to what you're looking for. That will sort of like kickstart you and get you going. It's like, again, it's a heck of a lot easier to edit than it is to create from scratch. So I already talked about some of my other points here, which is the substantiating claims, counter arguments, thesaurus, etc. I think that covers quite a bit of module 2, the writing and branding module. I know there's more about like making blog posts and your web presence and stuff. I wouldn't ever ask it to create a blog post for you, but you can ask it to find spelling mistakes or counter arguments, substantiation, etc. I think that's a fairly reasonable way to use AI. For the last module, module 3, the portfolio project and tech stack. Given what I've said so far, I'd love to hear some of your ideas about using various AI tools in Module 3. Nick Turner, what do you think?
I'm not too sure. I didn't really use it. Like I'm not familiar with it at all. I've heard of it, but I don't use it for anything.
That's okay. What module are you in Praxis right now?
I'm fishing up 3.
You're finishing up 3. Okay, so what have you done so far? What have you done so far in 3?
I pretty much use almost every tech tool I learned in 1 and 2 and used it for my own, like kind of put it my own way for module 3.
What was your portfolio project?
I built a company, like clothing brand.
Okay, very cool. Couple different things you can do there. So like you need a website for that, right? You also need marketing plan. You need for marketing tools, connecting things together. There, of course, when you're making clothing brands, you don't necessarily want AI to create that because, like, I think maybe the core of what you're making is the design yourself, right? I'm assuming that it's a design-based clothing brand. Maybe it's not, but in terms of like speeding up your process there, when you're building out a sales funnel or customer success pipeline, there's a couple different ways you could go about it. You could make one from scratch. You could adopt one that's already out there. You could also do a blend. So I think one interesting way might be to use one of these tools to help you find a cadence that might work for certain customer base, adapt language to that as well. So like you're not necessarily relying on just yourself for that sort of writing. Maybe help you find imagery that evokes a certain emotional response to pair with some of your clothing brand. There's also pretty cool tools now that there's models that don't actually exist. They're not real people that you can essentially project clothing onto them. They will wear your clothing and be your clothing model, which costs a heck of a lot less than a photo shoot with a real model, right? I think those kind of tools are really fascinating me right now because at a glance, it's hard for me to tell that they're not actual human beings. Like there's some that, and Ryan is very helpfully throwing a lot of links in the chat here. Appreciate that. Sometimes when you look at photos of like images made with AI, they're people with 8 fingers that are clearly fake, but like the company that has been working on this particular problem has been very good about, say, like hiding their hands or making sure that the hands look realistic, making sure that their mouth isn't shoved full of 50 teeth. It's like looks like real regular people. Might actually even be like someone's face but projected onto a different head, different body, maybe slightly changed. It's really amazing that you can like do a quick 3D scan with your phone of a piece of clothing and have it then projected onto what looks like a human being. It's like the cost of making that sort of marketing, those marketing assets can go way down. And you know what? It's like I think of when it comes to, so you get placed at a partner that has something like this. Maybe other people at the company don't know that these tools exist. It's a pretty low cost overall test to just see if it works for that company, rather than a pretty high fixed cost of doing a full photo shoot, right? That takes a decent amount of time and money. Might take you an afternoon to just see if an AI approach might work for a particular problem. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You learned something good there. But if it does work, you might have saved that particular company some amount of money. One announcement that came out a couple days ago, I think maybe Thursday, Friday last week, Canva, company that like helps you make social media imagery and stuff, introduced quite a bit of AI tooling into their Pro Tool. So it helps you with copy right in the tool. It helps you with generating imagery right in the tools. You don't have to go out with a bunch of disparate tools. The company that my wife works for, they do events. She runs a team of people that are placed in buildings all over the US, and they kind of each run individual events in their buildings. Her entire team uses Canva, and it's kind of cool in real time to watch how this is changing their workflow, because some of them were using ChatGPT to come up with some like event marketing copy. And it's just like, it's pretty crazy in the past couple months how their turnaround time has changed, how their emails have changed. Just trying out some of these new tools in the wild. All right, so I would also love to take questions from folks. A couple other things I want to chat about that here's some ideas for each of the different roles. So in sales, you can use ChatGPT to hone your negotiation skills. There's actually a kind of a variant of ChatGPT out there. Well, it's not a variant, it's ChatGPT trained on another data set that is aimed at helping you with negotiation. It's kind of dumb. It's like you're haggling over the price of one, like a carpet or something like that. But you can use GPT. I wouldn't use GPT-3 for this. I'd probably use GPT-4. It's a more advanced model, have a lot better results with honing your negotiation skills. So you can ask it to role play with you. You can be on either side of the table with figuring out your negotiation, or maybe help it, ask it to help you create a follow-up schedule. Like, what's an optimal follow-up schedule? Sometimes sales is just following up in a timely manner, and finally someone will take you up on it. The other thing is that the same company that makes ChatGPT, OpenAI, they have a tool called Whisper. Whisper is a video transcription software. Record some of your sales calls. Ask permission, of course. You don't want to illegally wiretap someone and go to prison. But if they will allow you to record your sales calls, run your sales calls through Whisper. So transcribe them in text. The text is very, very accurate. It's surprisingly accurate. I mean, if you're using Google Meet, Google's got one as well. It's okay. Honestly, I think Whisper's better. But get text wherever you can. But once you have that text, dump the text into ChatGPT, then ask it questions like, okay, at what point in my sales pitch, what point was it weak? Where was it weakest? Where can I improve? How can I change the way that I phrase XYZ to be more effective? You will get answers. They might not always be the exact best answers, but you will get answers. And I think that sort of introspection is how you improve that stuff anyway. And of course, sometimes people will say, okay, let's watch it together, take notes, etc. I think that's essentially the same thing you're doing with transcribing and asking questions. You're just also you're able to do it faster, and you're able to do 10 videos at once instead of 1 video per hour for every hour sales call. So, once you get to the point where you've got your like just the regular text pitch down and you know what you're saying, then I think that's the point at which you switch to using video, and you switch to watching your own videos and watching how you're standing, how your eye contact is, how you're talking, etc. There are some tools out there that help you with like eye contact and like measuring eye contact throughout a video. I haven't used any of those. Obviously, I'm looking down to the screen, half this time that I'm supposed to be looking up at you all, but I'm not in sales. On customer success, there's, of course, there's no substitute for like learning the tools that you need to be supporting very, very deeply. But if you get stuck on a hairy problem, especially if it's like integration into other tools or trying to figure out where to debug XYZ, use it. Have you ever heard the term rubber ducking? In programming, I don't have a rubber duck here. My toddler son has the other duck in the other room that I have in here sometimes, little pirate duck. The general idea is that if you're stuck on a problem, you set a rubber duck on your desk and you explain the problem to the rubber duck, and then all of a sudden you kind of understand where your problem is. People in programming and other areas of tech do this all the time. You can also use ChatGPT to rubber duck as well. Might actually be even more effective because unlike a duck, ChatGPT can give you some answers. I must say I use ChatGPT pretty much every single workday, and I also use tools like Copilot help me writing code. I don't use the image creation stuff that often, but I have some tools built in my computer as well that kind of connect to ChatGPT. I use Raycast for some automation tools on my computer. So I have an extension in Raycast to use AI. I just kind of open it up and ask questions all day long and try to like validate what I'm thinking. I mean, it really does help quite a bit. And also, if you're not doing real-time chat, but you're answering emails, you can use these tools to make your customer-facing voice better. Like, it's very difficult for the nuance of regular conversation to come through via text, right? You're writing things. How often does things that you write get misconstrued by the person at the other end? It might be worth, until you realize what words are kind of like trigger words and what phrases can sort of get misconstrued, might be worth running your emails through ChatGPT to sort of like smooth out your voice and make it more positive, helpful, customer facing. Like, one way that you would do that is you would say, copy your text, put it in there and say, here's my email. I would like, and then write another couple lines. I would like help with rewriting this in a way that reflects these attributes. Helpful, positive, cheerful, enter, and see what it does. And then also change those 3 attributes and also see how the email changes. It's kind of fascinating how quickly it does and what words it then changes. It can help you figure out what's helpful in that sort of writing style. And in a marketing role, obviously coming up with copy, imagery, videos, a marketing schedule, very useful. Again, I'm gonna keep hitting the hammer on this. Don't ask it to create the finished product for you. Ask it to help you create various things along the way. Make sure that your input is going in there as well, because also at the end of the day, if you don't understand what the output is and your boss asked you some difficult questions about it, you better be able to answer those difficult questions. And an unacceptable answer in my mind as a team lead is that this is what ChatGPT gave me. It's an okay answer if here's what ChatGPT gave me because of XYZ, and I think it's good because XYZ, but you need to take that extra step and understand what it's saying, understand the inputs, understand the outputs. So at the end of the day, you're still responsible for your work, right? You can't hide behind what a computer told you. And then in the operations role, of course, all of the other operations is a little piece of every part of the puzzle, but a huge part of the operations role is automation, right? So figuring out how you can take various parts of the puzzle and automate that full chain to get some sort of output. It's real. If you're comfortable with like writing little scripts and running scripts in your computer, ChatGPT is really, really, really good at writing bash scripts. It's also pretty good at coming up with complex Google Sheets formulas, Excel formulas, various things like that. So, and that sort of stuff can save you a lot of time when you're in an operations role, automating this sort of work. And now with ChatGPT 4 being able to connect into other tools with various plugins, setting up that sort of pipeline workflow where you get inputs, processes them to something, say like, all right, you're in sales, you need a bunch of leads. You find a bunch of people's names on company website. You go on Hunter and you find the general structure of their email, first dot last name at company.com. You can copy all those names. Just actually don't even copy the names individually, it takes too long. Copy the entire page, paste in ChatGPT, say, give me all the names. I want them in this format: first name, last name, comma, first initial, underscore, last name at thisdomain.com. Boom, you have an entire list of people you can cold email in the next 5 minutes. Like, it's pretty crazy, right? And it will be pretty good. I think like the days of web scraping where it took quite a bit of technical know-how to scrape a page, pull out attributes, like that's almost over even now. And we're in the really early days of these AI tools. That text recognition is out of this world. Better than any regex you or I could write, for sure. Okay, that's all I wanted to talk about. And that's at the end of my notes. I would love to answer questions, whether about AI or something else, Praxis related, crash related, books you're reading, books I'm reading.
Chuck, one thing I wanted to pick your brain about was kind of how you see like being early in your career, thinking about the areas you want to focus on, given the fact that like AI is changing the ways companies work, the way jobs work. Are there any like areas you'd say, hey, definitely worth focusing here, or I maybe would avoid focusing on this stuff because this seems like the stuff that's a job now that's not going to be a job in a couple of years?
I've seen a lot of speculation there, and while I think that we can talk about what might happen in the next 5 or 10 years, like I don't want to pollute any of your minds with that, because my own job changed a lot in the first 5 years. And I think that what I would do is focus on the fundamentals, right? Like, so I've got a background in programming. I'm still not worried about my job going away, because we still need one, the outputs aren't good enough yet that you can just take them and run them. Like, they're pretty good, but you still need to understand roughly how the code works, because when it doesn't, you need to fix it, and you need to know where to look in order to fix it. But okay, when interacting with these tools, one of the key components is communication. You need to be able to ask it clear, concise questions, know what to ask in order to get the right output. In general, you need to know what inputs need to go into any of these tools in order to get your output. So you need to be able to know what is worth working on, what is worth investing in. Of course, you can ask questions and sort of like have ChatGPT guide that, but at the end of the day, it can't really, right now yet, it can't do the things that, like, it can't guide you to know what you're supposed to do. It can just give you answers when you sort of ask it a question or give it a certain direction. So focusing on the fundamentals so that you know what you need to do, or have an inkling of what you need to do, the road that you want to go down, like the area you want to try, is probably the place to keep focusing. So like, you need to know the fundamentals of sales. You need to know the fundamentals of marketing. You need to know the fundamentals of operations. If you're in a tech role, you probably need to know the fundamentals of programming still. If you're not in a tech role, kind of up in the air on whether or not you need to know programming. I used to think that everyone should know some, but now I'm kind of relaxed in that a little bit. It's been very, very helpful in my career, but I do Well, I work on open source software, so I mean, of course, it's going to be helpful for me, right? If you don't work on open source software every day, knowing the fundamentals of PHP might not be all that useful to you. So learn how to communicate well, learn the basics. And I think this is where sort of the ChatGPT, other AI tools can help a lot. You can learn the basics of a lot of different fields really quickly, enough to sort of get your bearings. I've been surprised, like, okay, I know the basics of programming, but I don't know every language yet. I've been able to, like, I don't know Python, for example. I know how to install Python, and I know when I'm looking at a language that it's Python because it's structured in a certain way, but I don't write Python. I'm in like an hour working with ChatGPT. I had a working pretty complex Python script to do some automation for me. That was mind-blowing to me. But I needed to know, like, okay, what sort of things do I need to focus on here? I need to know the structure. I don't need to know, or let's talk about Spanish for a second, right? Like, I know general language structure. I don't know most of the vocabulary, but I know when someone is speaking Spanish, and I know when it's a verb versus a noun versus something else, a different part of speech. And so then I know roughly what someone is saying if I can slow it down and read it, and then know which exact words I need to look up to get the vocabulary, to get like the 60, 70, 80% right. That's how I feel about using AI tools as well. I need to know the basic structure of what I'm trying to do, but I don't need to know every vocabulary word in the book in order to, make some decent progress. Oh, sorry, I realized my toddler wrote all over my arm a little earlier, so I don't have crazy gang tattoos all up and down my arms. It's just purple marker.
Awesome.
Do you know what tools I should use to get out of like a art design rut? Just to get some ideas.
Yeah, let me open up my my bookmark tool. 1 second. I bookmarked something super useful recently that I would like to send to you. So give me just a second. Actually, how about this? I'm pretty sure I'm still in your Slack instance. So after this call, I will hop on there and dump some links. Can you remind? I only heard you talk. I didn't see your name. Could you remind me who asked that question?
Parker Gilbert.
Parker Gilbert. Okay. Taking a note. I'm also an obsessive note taker. So just writing your name down. Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll try to get back into your Slack instance shortly. I see in chat here, Joey Clune asks, hopefully I'm not butchering any of your names, by the way. What AI bot do I recommend for writing, creating code? So GitHub Copilot is probably the best right now, and sort of I use it as an extension inside VS Code. So it's a separate extension you install in VS Code. You get it for free if you contribute to open source projects, and they very loosely define open source projects there. It's just kind of like stuff that you openly share on GitHub. So try GitHub Copilot first. That's probably the best. The way that you use it is you know how to write comments in code. You write a comment explaining what you want, what you're trying to do, and then like 5 seconds later, it comes back with something that looks like what you're trying to do. And it's tab autocomplete. So you tab, finish completing what you're saying, and then you can change it around a little bit. With what you need to do. It's been pretty good. And they recently updated it, so it's even better. Early days was a little rough, like it made up API endpoints that didn't actually exist, but it's getting a heck of a lot better with it. I'm able to write stuff a heck of a lot faster because it just scaffolds out like all the annoying stuff that you have to think through step by step. And then again, it's a heck of a lot easier to edit than it is to create from scratch. So just getting a huge head start there. It's good. You can also you can use ChatGPT for stuff like that as well. You can say one thing that ChatGPT is really great at that GitHub Copilot cannot do is let's say I have a bash script getting something in curl. I can say, can you rewrite this in PHP? Can you rewrite it in JavaScript? Can you rewrite it in Python? And it's like almost 100% accuracy and writing code you give it in another language. It's scary good. So if you see examples online of something that does what you're trying to achieve, these tools can translate it very, very quickly. Of course, don't copy and paste code you find on the internet. You could get hacked really easily that way. You still need to understand what's going on in the code, but it's good. It's really good. I think everyone on my team is using it all day long now, and our output is going up. Again, I mean, it seems like, oh, we're using this for years. I mean, we've been using it for a couple months now, but it's like, it's been a fascinating couple months.
Awesome. Probably have time for one more question if someone has one on the tip of their tongue.
For people like me who don't have a programming background, are there any books or websites you'd recommend to learn the basics of how AI work and how someone like me can use them?
Yes, I do. You are Matthew Flanagan, taking a note. Are you looking for a technical breakdown of how the AI works? Like what large language models are doing behind the scenes, something like that? Or just how you might use it to speed up programming, or both?
I think I may have worded it wrong. It's more like how do I use it? Because I know, for example, with ChatGPT, you have to put in certain keywords to get the results that you want. So is there anything to learn the basics of how the AI interprets those keywords and then how to properly optimize the keywords that you use to get the results that you need?
Yes. Roughly the phrase you're looking for is called prompt engineering, right? There's I'll send you a couple links shortly after this, but there's a whole that's a whole genre on the internet at the moment. All right, how does the certain prompt engineering work? What outputs are you getting for certain inputs, and how does it change based on the inputs? There's a couple of good websites I came across this week that I'll post your way in Slack. I'm guessing you're all in Slack, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
Yeah, and Chuck, let me know if you have any issues getting back in, and I can make sure you.
Okay, I just need to log in. I think I haven't logged in a while.
Sweet.
Let me do that.
Awesome. Well, Chuck, thanks so much for your time tonight. If someone wanted to follow up, ask you a question, just say thank you. Where would be the best place to get in touch?
My website, cagrimmett.com. I've got my email and everything else there. All around the internet, my handle is Grimmett, and I'm the only Grimmett that I'm aware of. So if you see that on the site, it's probably me. Yeah, just find me info there.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chuck.
Thank you all. Very nice to meet you. Have a great time. Rest of your Praxis experience. Have a good evening. I'm guessing. Most of you
Thank you.
are in the evening time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well. Thanks.